service is an activity that fulfills a human want or need in return of money. Consumer services is to provide services to individual consumers who desire them and can afford them. Business services is to facilitate the activities of other businesses. Public services is to provide security and protection for citizens and business. Settlement is a permanent collection of buildings where people reside and obtain services. Services generate more than 2/3 of GDP in most developed countries, compared to around 1/2 in developing countries. Services cluster in developed countries because more people who are able to buy services live there. Within developed countries, only one location factor is critical for a service: proximity to the market. The optimal location for a factory will be on a large area, whereas the optimal location for a service may be a very specific place. This graph shows the percentage of different services.
Where are consumer services distributed? A central place theory helps explain how the most profitable location can be identified. It was first proposed in the 1930s by Walter Chrysler. He was a German geographer.
No, do it again.
Central place is a market center for the exchange of goods and services by people attracted to the surrounding area. Central place is so called because it is centrally located to maximize accessibility. I said it right. Market area, the area surrounding a service from which customers are attracted. This is a good example of a nodal region, which is a core characteristic. The closer to the periphery of the circle, the greater the percentage of the customers who will choose to obtain services from the local establishment. Range is the maximum distance people are willing to travel to use a service. People are usually only going to go a short distance for everyday consumer services, but they'll travel longer distances for other services like concerts or ball games. People tend to go to the nearest available service, so the range of the service must be determined from the radius of a circle that is irregularly shaped rather than one that's round. The range must be modified further because most people think of distance in terms of time rather than kilometers or miles. A threshold is the minimum number of people needed to support the service. Census data helps to estimate the potential population within the circle. How potential consumers inside the range are counted depends on the product. To represent market acres in central place theory, geographers draw hexagons around settlements. Circles can't be used because they either have gaps that indicate that people there don't count, or they overlap, which doesn't work because one service or another will be closer. Squares can't be used because the distance from the center varies among points along the square. Hexagons are good because they offer a compromise between the geometric proportions of circles and squares. Bank size rule is the country's X largest settlement is half X the population of the largest settlement. Second largest is half the size of the largest. Fourth largest is fourth the size of the largest. The primate city rule is the largest settlement has more than twice as many people as the second largest. In Mexico, Mexico City is the largest, and it's 10 times larger than the fifth largest settlement, Tulca. A regular hierarchy indicates that society is sufficiently wealthy to justify the population of goods and services to consumers throughout the country. Market areas across a developed country would be a series of hexagons in various sizes, unless interrupted by physical features such as mountains and bodies of water. Businesses in central places compete against each other to serve as markets for goods and services for the surrounding region. Larger settlements provide consumer services that have larger thresholds, ranges, and market areas. A large store can't survive in a small settlement because the threshold exceeds the population within range of the settlement. The best location for a factory is typically described as a large region, such as Auto Valley. The components of the central place theory are 1. Define the market or trade area where the store would derive most of its sales. 2. Estimate the range for the service, like 15 minutes for Family Dollar or 30 for Target. And 3, estimate the threshold, only counted if they have sufficient income. And 4, predict market share, judge locations that are comparable. Food desert, area that has limited access to nutritional food, basically. Like Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box! Because people won't travel long distances for services, people who live in places with mostly junk food services aren't getting enough nutritional value. Periodic market, a collection of individual vendors who come together to offer goods and services in a location on specified dates. A periodic market makes services available in more villages than would otherwise be possible. A farmer's market is a form of periodic market found in many developed countries. In the US, the farmers' markets typically set up once or twice a week. Services that involve sharing have expanded rapidly, especially in transportation and lodging. Ride-sharing services such as Uber and Lyft match people looking for a ride with people who are willing to transport them in their cars.
Business services. A global city is a major center for the provision of services in the global economy. Business services in global cities. Business services that concentrate in large numbers in global cities include financial institutions, headquarters of large corporations, and professional services. Consumer and public services in global cities. Leisure services of national significance are likely to cluster in global cities because they need large thresholds and there are more wealthy patrons. Global cities may be centers of national or international political power. Ranking global cities. Global cities are divided into the levels alpha, beta, and gamma. A combo of factors is used to identify and rank global cities: economic, political, cultural, infrastructure, communications, and transportation. Offshore financial services. Offshore centers provide these functions in the global circulation of capital. Taxes on income, profits, and capital gains are low or non-existent. The companies have tax-free status, and the U.S. loses around $70 billion in tax revenue each year because of this. Privacy. Bank secrecy laws can help individuals and businesses evade disclosure in their home countries. There are lists of offshore financial service centers, which include dependencies of the UK, of countries other than the UK, independent island countries, and independent countries that are not islands. Business process outsourcing, or BPO. The functions are clerical activities. The rising rents in buildings have induced businesses to lower rent buildings elsewhere. Selected developing countries have attracted back offices for reasons related to labor or low wages and ability to speak English. Economic base. The economic activities in a settlement can be divided into two types: basic businesses, which can export primarily to customers outside the settlement, and non-basic businesses, which serve primarily customers living in the same settlement. Distribution of talent. Some cities have a higher percentage of talented individuals. These individuals are responsible for promoting economic innovation. They are attracted to the cities with the most job opportunities and financial incentives, and they are also enticed by the cultural factors of a location.
A clustered rural settlement is when a number of families live in close proximity to each other with fields surrounding the houses and farm buildings. A dispersed rural settlement is characterized by farmers living on individual farms isolated from neighbors rather than alongside other farmers in settlements. Dispersed rural settlements were more common in the American colonies outside New England. Urban is large size, higher density, and more diverse. Rural is the exact opposite. Urbanization is when the population of urban settlements grow. Many settlements originated in southwest China. After the fall of the Roman Empire, urban settlements were clustered into China. A megacity is an urban settlement with access to 10 million people. Developed countries have a higher percentage of urban residents.